Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. If your business model incorporates some type of launch or start and stop sales process, then it can be pretty exhausting and stressful to try to manage the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of this type of sales cycle where you're launching, you're stopping, you're launching, you're stopping. And it puts a lot of pressure on you as a business owner to perform in these launches. So basically, this pressure can lead to a lot of judgment, a lot of negative feelings, a lot of doubt, and it can just exacerbate the things that are already happening in your business, in your mindset, in your life. And to help that not happen, right, I want to teach some strategies of how you can manage a slow launch and how you can recover effectively and be able to bounce back and do it all over again if you are running some type of launch sales cycle. Now, I've done episodes in the past about this where I talk about the launch cycle and why, frankly, as a CFO, I'm not a huge fan of having some type of start and stop launch offer. I'm really not. Now, that's just my opinion. It works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me personally very much. I also find that with clients, if that is the only type of offer you have, or that's your keystone offer, then it can be really, really difficult to manage and predict cash flow. It can be really difficult to manage the business finances. So basically, when it comes to your launch cycles, you want to be careful with managing, number one, the timing, number two, the targets, and you want to be setting realistic goals. You also want to be realistic about what you're willing to exert during that time frame and what's going to be expected of you. Now, that being said, if you have a slow launch and you need to recover a little bit, you need to get back on the saddle, there are a couple of things that I think you should do if you had to create some type of, logical process to do so that you're not living in the emotions of it for too long. Number one, objectively assess performance against your expectations and set the expectations against the actions that you completed. So what I mean is, what were your sales expectations where you feel like you had a slow launch? Like, what's the measuring stick you're using to say it was slow or that it was not performing well, right? So make sure you've got a measuring stick for that and you've set expectations. Evaluate those expectations against what you've done to contribute to your performance. So let's say you sold nothing during a launch. Well, did you, and I actually recommend that you draft these questions ahead of time. So before you're in the muck of it and you're setting your process up, right? Like you're going to say, okay, I'm planning a launch and I got to make sure I'm just using examples. Post on social every day, talk about the launch. Okay. So let's say that's one of your metrics, you say, I'm going to post on social every day. So then when you're doing this like post-mortem, we call it, we look at the launch going back. Did you post on social every day? Like, how well did you live up to these targets that were the micro targets that contributed to the overall macro performance target? So what are the different steps that you could have done? And what were the discrepancies? And be honest with yourself objectively to see, could you have done more? Could you have done things better? Could you have done things faster? Or were you doing the right things in the first place? So before you blame a lack of customers or blame, oh, the wrong people were approaching me or the ads didn't work or whatever it is. Like you can blame all these external things, but what it comes down to is, what were the things within your control that you could have pulled the levers on a bit differently? And be honest with yourself. Like I said, you have to be really honest, because unless you can be honest, you will not be performing, you will not be improving. Right? You have to really get honest with what are the factors that contributed to your quote unquote failure. I don't like that word for this. I would say like falling short of expectations, right? Because I don't think anything's really a failure. Like it's all worthwhile. I mean, I've tried to launch courses before and had a 0 sales result. And it's a bummer, but it's also like, well, I didn't really promote it that much. Like I really don't like doing that. I don't really like pushing stuff on social media a ton. So it was no surprise that, like, yeah, the launch kind of sucked because I didn't really talk about it a lot. And I know that. So I don't blame anyone else but myself, but we still have that outcome, right? And you also want to look at where a breakdown could have happened, right? How strong was your conversion at each stage of the process in your launch? So you should have these kind of phases or like a funnel, right? Where you're bringing people in. Let's just say you're bringing people into some type of free call, free webinar, free lead magnet, whatever it is, right? Your free content of sorts. You're going to bring them into some free content. Then from that free content, let's say at the end of the webinar, you're going to get them to enroll in something else, or you're going to sell them from the webinar, or you're going to get them from the webinar. This is a great example, from the webinar to a discovery call, from a discovery call to a sale. Let's just put 3 processes in, or 3 steps. So we get on the webinar. So here's a question. These are all the different things I want you to measure if you're doing this type of approach. How many people registered for the webinar? And if you can find out how many people saw it, like if you're running ads to the webinar, how many people saw it, right? How many leads did you get? How many enrollments did you get of those leads, right? So there's a percentage right there, the enrollment percentage. Then of the people that enrolled, how many showed up? So now you've got the attendance percentage. I'm just making up these names, by the way. Attendance percentage. So it's how many of the people who signed up, how many people showed up. And by the way, before I get into the next step, all of these are very low. Like the average attendance rate, I want to say, is like less than 10%. And then we get into, of the people who were on the call, how many clicked the link to schedule. That's going to be between 1 and 5%. Like they're really low numbers, guys. So you also have to be really clear that, like, you're going to have to build an audience that is massive in order to get the kind of results that you want. You should not anticipate that, 80 people registered for my event. I'm like, great, 10 might show up. 10 might show up. And that's not a testament to you. That's not making a statement towards you or like an inability or a lack of anything. This is just kind of human behavior, guys. Like, people register for stuff and they flake out. Like, they forget it's going to happen. They don't have any skin in the game. There's no stakes if it's free, right? So you got to not be hard on yourself about these types of things. You got to look at, there's going to be a free thing. There's going to be, let's say there's a step 2, which is a discovery call, again, free. And then you drop the offer and see who buys. Ultimately, what you want to get to is the conversion rate. And the conversion rate would be how many sales you make for how many calls you take. And that's going to be a really valuable metric. Now, if you did not close as many sales, what you want to do is go from end to end of that pipeline. So you want to go from the free content all the way to the sales calls and say, okay, so it looks like we brought in, 1,000 leads, and of those 1,000 leads, 800 registered for the webinar. That's phenomenal. So we don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem with that part of the process. 800 registered for the webinar. Let's say 100 showed up. Okay, that's actually not bad. So 100 showing up is not bad. If one person of that clicked the link, now that's tricky because, like, in theory, if they're a good lead, right? If this is a really good hotbed of 100 people and one person bought, oh, okay. But I would say that there's probably a breakdown somewhere on the webinar from them not taking action. So now I say, examine your webinar, examine how you told them to take action. Did the link work? Did it work for everybody? Was everybody able to get, like, let's say you dropped it in the Zoom chat and you dropped it 5 minutes before the end of the call. Was everybody able to grab the link before they left? Did you follow up with the link? And hey, did you offer like a bonus by midnight that night if they go in and click? Did you set a deadline, right? That they have to go in and click and buy, or they have to go click and book. If they tried to book with you, did you have calendar availability that was really good, right? Did people click and then drop off? So we have data that tells us all of this to be able to pinpoint where the breakdown happened. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is dissect your whole process like Sherlock Holmes and go through and say, where did the breakdown happen? And then finally, after you examine all of this and you realize that I did everything perfectly, I have the perfect launch, perfect formula, perfect leads, perfect ad, everything. What you might be facing, and I hope, and again, it's one or the other. Usually it's the launch process or it's this, which is the offer. Like, is the offer attractive? Fundamentally, is it a sellable offer? Because I see this problem all the time. I see two main problems. I see a killer offer with a shitty launch sequence, right? A killer offer where they think they can rest on their laurels. They can rest on the fact that it's a really good offer and they won't have to sell it. So then they phone in the launch. But I've also seen killer launchers with a so-so product. And the so-so product makes itself known after a while and people don't actually buy it, even though they may like this person, they may show up to the webinars, they may engage with the content, but like they don't show up and buy because maybe the offer isn't really articulated well enough to be a solution to their problem. So you have to really be honest with yourself. Like I said, is it my offer? Fundamentally, is my offer a viable product? So you have to make sure you're vetting, you have to make sure you're researching, you have to make sure that you're proving the concept by having somebody buy your offer before you sell it. And frankly, you want to make sure you're selling it before you create too much, just in case this stuff happens, right? You have to take a good critical eye at the offer as well. So, like I said, you want to evaluate your expectations against your performance. You want to find out where there could have been a breakdown in your process if you go step by step by step on a micro level. But you also want to look at your offer and you want to make sure that you are selling a viable product that solves a problem for somebody and that it's super clear. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for feedback from those who engage with you but didn't buy. Be honest and say, hey, I am doing a bit of a review from my launch. I noticed that we engaged on social media about this, but you didn't buy. I'm curious to find out why. Was it the price? Was it, the offer? Like, tell me more about why you didn't buy so I can reflect that in my feedback. And I'll tell you, there's really no reason somebody wouldn't be honest with you if you approached it that way. So take that feedback as really good value. It's a gift because they'll tell you the answer to the questions that can take years to figure out on your own, right? Because you'll have to iterate and try again and try again and try again before you'll actually arrive at the conclusion using the data. So instead, use the people. Ask them directly, why didn't you buy? And not in a derogatory or judgmental way. Just say, hey, I'm looking for some feedback so I can make this better. What could I have done differently? And quite frankly, added bonus, that helps build relationships. It shows humility and it shows that you're just out here trying to build your business and you want the feedback so that you can grow. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, then please consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. We really appreciate it. I love reading the reviews and I love hearing that this content is resonating and that it's helpful for you. Thank you so much. I can't believe how many episodes we've released of Keep What You Earn. There are literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in tax savings contained in our episode library. And there are so many topics that we cover. To make it easier to find more of what you need right now, we actually created a custom curated playlist just for you. That's right, a playlist of value-packed episodes that you're looking for based on your goals right now in your business. Whether you're making your first sale, trying to strategize your taxes, or you're scaling your team, there is something here for everyone. Check out the podcast playlist generator now using the link in the show notes and explore your custom playlist. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.